Okay, good evening. Let's have a look. So Pesach is coming, and Pesach is almost here. Okay. Now on Seder night, what are the main mitzvot that stick out? What are the main mitzvot? When you think of the mitzvah of the Seder night, you think of matzah. And the next thing you think of is?
Telling the Pesach story.
Telling a story. Okay? What's that? Hallel is there. But in terms of the mitzvahs of the night, so matzah is certainly gets a high rating. The maror is a mitzvah. If we had a better mikdash, we'd bring a korban pesach. That's the pesach. And the wine is already it's rabbinic in its obligation, but it is an obligation, but it's a rabbinic obligation. Matzah and the maror is a Torah obligation. It could be that only when we have all three, the matzah, the maror, and the pesach, that it assumes this full-fledged mitzvah.
What about
Asking, and then what you said, you mentioned telling of the story. So that is a mitzvah deoraita. It's a mitzvah stipulated in the Torah. V'higadata levincha bayom hahu lemor. And you shall tell your son on that day, saying the following thing. Okay, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah deoraita. Putting on tefillin, saying Shema, shaking the lulav, telling the story on this night. It's a bona fide mitzvah. So, what does a story mean? Telling the story. What does it mean? What does it mean? What's the definition of a story? What is a story?
To remind us.
What's that?
To remind us of the Exodus.
No, I'm asking more definition. In other words, what's the difference between telling a story, telling information? Like, what is a story? What actually, you look up the words story in the dictionary. Like, what's a story?
Reliving an experience.
Reliving an experience.
An allegory of the real situation.
An allegory. It could be the real thing. Story could be the real thing, not necessarily an allegory. What components does a story have? Events. What else? What else does a story have? A good story has what?
A message.
A message. A story has a plot, right? A story can have props, almost like a play, yeah. Props, characters. It's got okay. But I think the most the most telling thing about a story is that it's like a plot. It's got a story. There's a story going on. There's a message. There's something unraveling. It's not just bits. It's a story, right? That's what a story is. There's a beginning. There's a middle. There's an end. There's a plot. Yeah? So it's possible that the Seder can turn into something that's not a story. It's possible. Okay? What's possible? It's possible in that when you go through this text, it's a text. Here, the Haggadah, it's a text. It's easy to get distracted. Okay? Because, Shlomi heard a nice thing in school about the wise son, and Avraham wants to tell you a story about his grandparents, and Miriam, she wants to tell about the importance of the plague of frogs, and and this one, there's 100 different elements. There's a lot of different things that can distract you. But if that's what's happening, it's no longer a story. It's just a collection of different ideas, and it could be very nice ideas, fantastic, deep ideas, Kabbalistic ideas. It could be a whole range of great, great Torah, real Torah, quality Torah, but it's not a story. And you told me the mitzvah is a story. V'higadata, Haggadah, it's a story. You have to tell a message, right? Disparate ideas do not create a story, and a message won't just emerge magically. Okay, so that's really the problem. That's the problem. My rabbi said, he said, my children, this is the way he said it, again, it's You have to understand who he is, whatever. He says, my children, they can speak 364 days a year. He says, tonight, I speak. That's it. I'm telling the story. Again, it doesn't mean they're not asking questions. It means I'm giving a message. I'm running the show tonight. I'm telling you a story. Listen, this is my mitzvah tonight, and I'm going to tell you. Of course, there's interaction, but the concept, that's the concept. So then, what are the major themes? Pesach, Matzah, Maror. These are the major themes, right? These are the highlights. Anyone who hasn't said these three things, what do you mean you haven't said it? It means these are the themes. If you didn't cover the main themes, you haven't told the story yet, right? So now we have to say, well, what is Matzah? What is Pesach? What's the Korban Pesach? What is the Maror? It becomes a whole expedition about what these things are. And
it's turned into a ritual, in other words. Is that what we're saying? It's not just a story, but it's ritual, a doing thing now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're telling a story, you're just telling a story, and we're just the audience and listening to a story. But this is a ritual really now.
I wouldn't say it's a ritual. I wouldn't say it's a ritual in that sense. I would say that when I say it's a story, I don't mean that someone has to just speak and everyone listens and tells the story, but that we have to create a story. Together, around my Seder table, we must create a story. There has to be a message in our discussions, in the themes, in the Haggadah text. It must produce story. Yeah? Not that it's a ritualistic and everyone has to listen and now let's just go through this, because you need to work out what's going on. Yeah? So maybe we'll just start unraveling. I'm not sure where this will go, but we'll start unraveling a few of the ideas in the Haggadah. So let's start off. Okay. I'll come back to getting rid of the chametz in a moment, but we'll go from the Kadesh Urchas. Right from the beginning, we speak out the table of contents.
Sure.
Okay. So we start off with Kiddush. Now you need to just think. Think what normally happens. You come home from shul on Shabbat or Yom Tov, and what's on the table? You have the wine, you have the challahs, you have everything ready. And what happens? Papa makes the Kiddush, and then what happens? You eat. Okay, you eat. You wash and you eat, right? You eat. What happens on Pesach? You come home, you make Kiddush, and you talk. Yeah? We suspend the meal. The meal's suspended for the famous story of someone who's told, you've got to go to this rabbi's house for Seder. It's the most amazing thing. Everything's amazing, delicious. And he goes there and he sits down and make Kiddush, and he's anticipating this. He smells the food. You smell the food, right? You're smelling it. Oh, I can't wait. And it's long, talking. And what do you get? You get a piece of celery. That's really, it's just, what's the purpose of the celery or the potato, whatever you got there? To whet your appetite. It's a teaser. You want to eat? Here, have something that's going to make you more hungry. And now wait. Why are we doing that? When something happens big and you come home and you want to tell your wife what's going on. You don't, you won the lotto, let's say, You don't come home, you have a nice supper, you finish, you pack up, you wash up, say, look, I'd like to tell you something. What happens? You can't, I can't eat something. No, I can't eat. I can't eat until I tell you what happened. That's what happens on Seder night. There's something so important, so pivotal to who we are as to who we are around the table. We will not eat until we discuss this. Okay, so again, it's part of it's the suspense for the story. Okay, we're expecting after Kiddush, we're expecting a meal, and instead of a meal, we get a long, drawn-out wait with a teaser of a piece of celery to whet our appetite even more, because we are not prepared to eat until we've told the story, whatever the story is. But it's a suspense tactic, right? That's what it means to get the children to ask, because shouldn't we be eating now? The problem is, I heard Rabbi Blackman once say, he says they learn so much at school, it's like they're expecting it to happen, but they shouldn't be expecting it. They should be expecting the meal to be coming after the Kiddush. Yeah? But because, they don't ask the question, because they know, now we do this, now we do that. He says the education is too good sometimes. Okay, so then we turn to, I'm not sure what's going on there. I think it's similar here to Ur. Is it the same setup there? Urchatz. So again, I'm giving you one story. I'm giving you one pathway through the Haggadah. There'll be plenty, and people can do, So I'm not. There are many other types of ways of looking at it, but I'm just giving you one pathway. So what's urchatz? You take this matzah. This is going to be one of the main props, correct? You're about to tell the story, and what do? You break it. Now, which half do you put away, and which half do you keep? Which half is the afikomen, and which half do you keep? The bigger one is the afikomen. So you take this big half, and you put it away. What are you saying? See, I'm going to tell you a story. But you should know it's only a part of the story. We keep the smaller part on the table, and the bigger part, the afikomen. Afikomen is for later. What does it mean for later? It means a story yet to come, in the future. I'm going to tell you a story, but there's only a little bit of the story. You're holding it. It's very visual. It's very subtle. We'll talk about subtlety later, but it's very, very subtle. I'm only telling you a story. It's only on part of the matzah. It's only part. The bigger story is yet to come. You ain't seen nothing yet, but we have to at least know the first story, the smaller one. Okay, so we put the bigger one away for later. And that's urchatz. Karpas, I told you, that's the teaser. Okay. Oh no, the yachatz is the rachatz is the washing. Karpas is the teaser. Yachatz is the breaking of the matzah. Okay. So now, what other themes? Now, each person, when making a seder, would need to think, what themes speak to me? Okay? Some themes that come out of the whole story, and you can't focus on everything. Okay? Each person would need to think what speaks to them. You could be speaking about tefillah. What it means tefillah, that a nation prays out to Hashem. And the whole Haggadah could revolve around tefillah. It could revolve around nisim, what it means miracles in the nation of Israel. It could be schar va'onesh, reward and punishment, how he treated the Egyptians, how he treated us, that interplay. But the one that stands out to me is the hashgacha pratis, which is Hashem's providence over the nation of Israel. The fact that He chose us. And you'll see this is a message that will keep coming out, And that's fine, because that's the story, that's the message. And it will keep revealing itself in all different ways. This hashgacha, the fact that Hashem is with us, that He's looking after us, and we'll see how it comes out. Okay. So we start off with this halach ma'anya, this poor man's bread, this tattered piece of bread, this poor man's bread, which is us before. This is the nation of Israel before we were redeemed. We're in Egypt, we're that tattered, shattered nation. We're not a nation yet. We're a nothing. We're not connected to Hashem. We had reached a very low level. We knew of the promise. We knew of these different things, but we certainly weren't a nation yet. It's described that we were like a body without a neshama. Because we didn't have that, we weren't plugged in. We were not plugged in, right? We spoke before about once you're connected, so you have that life force. We didn't have the life force yet. And we're falling. Day by day, we're falling. We're getting lower. So what does Hashem do? Let's begin to see what Hashem does. Also, the whole notion of questions. Okay, it's a very predominant ma nishtana. The notion of a question. What's a question? A person asks a question because they're missing something. Right? There's an answer. A question, which means there's an answer. I'm asking you something. I want to tap into something that I don't yet know. It's above me. Yeah? If I knew it, if it was already within my realm, I wouldn't be asking the question. So the whole notion of question and answer means there's something above me, something that I need to tap into, I need to access, I need to draw down, but I'm not yet there. So this hashgacha, this providence, hashgacha literally means providence. Hashgacha pratit. Prat means specific. So hashgacha pratit means specific providence. Not just a general providence, for example, that Hashem keeps in the existence of certain species of animals. That could be called general providence. Or maybe the way that he treats the non-Jews, that okay, in general. But for a Jew, we have what's called hashgacha pratit, specific providence. It's something that's above us. We don't always aware of Hashem's hashgacha. I wrote here. It's even to think too much. It can hurt you. But just to tie it in, which is really our job when we're telling the story, to tie these things in. The father who lost the 7 children, and you read his statement, and you shake when you read what he said. What stood out to me is, he talked about these seven sacrifices, but he says all you can do is surrender. That's what he said. All you can do is surrender to Hashem, to God. What's he saying? He's saying, I know Hashem. I know you took them. You took them away from me. That's the hashgacha. It's the providence. It's not pretty, it's not pleasant here. He says, all I can do is surrender. In other words, it's above me. Your providence is above me. That's what he's saying. All I can do is surrender. It's this acknowledge of the providence and saying, it's above me. Yeah, that's the question and answer. He's asking the question, but I know the answer is above me. Yeah, same thing with the Klal Yisrael in Egypt. Hashem's not going to be involved, but we have to realize today, we're always aloof. We're aloof to the exact how Hashem runs the world. We don't know. That Hashem runs the world, yes. That He's concerned, yes. That He's looking after us, yes. That's above us. We don't know how it's going to look when we see it. We don't know how it's going to look. When the Jews were told, you eat that Korban Pesach, you will hold your staff in your hand. You get ready to leave, because you won't know what it looks like when you leave. You have to be ready. You won't know what the redemption looks like, but be ready for it. It's a tension. It's hard. Be ready for it. Hold your stick. Hold your stuff. Have your shoes on. Have your bag packed. But you won't know what it looks like. We don't know what's going to be outside that door. You can't leave the door, right? You have to eat inside that room. Couldn't leave until you get this thing. Then at a given notice, go. Don't know what it's going to look like. Be ready. It's tension. Comes down to the very subtlety of a question and answer. Be open to the answer. I don't know what the answer is, right? I'm asking the question. I don't know what the answer is, but you have to be open to it. Otherwise, what's the question? So avadim hayinu. Okay, so that's my understanding. That's the whole notion of questions. Questions. It's questions. Okay, questions. Again, the theme tonight is hashgacha. Hashem is watching over us. He wants us. Avadim hayinu lepara b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. V'yotzienu Hashem Elokeinu misham. And Hashem took us out of there. Biyad chazakah, with an outstretched arm, with a strong hand, with Zronati on an outstretched arm. V'ilu lo atzi hakadosh baruch hu et avoteinu b'Mitzrayim. If He had not taken us out of Egypt, if He had not taken our fathers out of Egypt, anu vaneinu v'nei vaneinu, us and our children and our children's children, meshu'abedim hayinu lepara b'Mitzrayim, we would be still slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. It doesn't mean we'll still be slaves. Will we still be there in Egypt? What would have happened had Hashem not taken us out? Things would have just gone on. History would have just kept going. It would have just kept going. Cause and effect. Hashem said, I'm coming in. There's something I want to do. There's a people I want to take. There's a people that I'm interested in. Again, the hashgacha. It's going to keep coming back to the hashgacha. Hashem's interested in us. He wants us. Hashem says, I am not happy for the course of history to continue like this. I'm going to intervene. I'm interested. And I'm going to activate that now. right. It's a story. It's a story about the forging of a nation. That's what Pesach is about. Pesach is about forging a nation. You know, there are two. We don't know the rewards. We don't know the rewards for a positive mitzvah. We're not told them. Okay, we know the punishments for the negative mitzvot. Okay, for murder, there's a punishment of this, and for stealing, this is the punishment, and for all range of negative things, don't do. There's a concept, there's a punishment that's stipulated in the Torah. But for the positive mitzvot, tefillin, Shema, we don't know the reward, and we also don't know the punishment for not doing a positive mitzvah. In fact, what's the punishment for not saying Kriyat Shema, for saying Shema every day? Doesn't say. We know we have to say it. We don't know what the punishment is for not saying. What's the punishment for not putting on tefillin? Don't know. Okay? Except for 2 mitzvot. Only 2 positive mitzvot, their punishments are explicit. What are the 2 mitzvot? It's interesting to say that. That's the reward. But what's the punishment for not honoring your parents? Okay, I don't know, all the jokes. Okay, all the jokes. Okay, it doesn't say that explicitly. That's what happens if you do it. But if you don't do it, we don't know what in the Gemara it says Ein lomdim min adin, which means you can't learn out. The Gemara will never learn out a negative punishment through logic. If it's not explicit, we don't accept it. So much so that I'll give you an example. The Torah says that a brother who has relations with his sister from his mother is liable to a punishment, and a brother who has relations with his sister from his father is liable to a punishment. But it doesn't say that a brother who has relations with his sister from 2 parents is liable. Gemara says it's obvious. If you're liable each way, obviously you're going to be liable. Gemara says no. Can't learn that out. You can't use logic to punish someone like that. You can't apply logic. It needs to be explicit, otherwise we can't learn it. To that extent. Okay? Ein lomdin min adin. That's how the expression of the Gemara. There are only two mitzvot asay, only 2 positive commandments that have their punishment explicit. Number 1, Korban Pesach. A Jew who did not bring Korban Pesach is liable to a punishment called karet, which means spiritual excommunication from the nation. And the other one, a person who did not have a bris milah, circumcision. Okay? These are the 2 mitzvot that carry with them a punishment of kares, spiritual excommunication. You're cut off from the nation. In other words, get out of here. Even then, they do what they call tipat dam. They take out some blood. They still take it. They still do that. What's the inverse of karet? If karet is spiritual excommunication from the nation, so what's the opposite of that?
Spiritual inclusion.
A connection to the nation. So Brit Milah and a Korban Pesach are 2 mitzvot that tie to the nation. What's the difference between the 2? A Brit Milah is an individual's connection to the nation. I'm part of the nation. You're making this sign on your body. It's very explicit. I'm part of the nation individually. And the Korban Pesach is a communal. I'm part of the communal. I'm part of the community, not just as an individual, my pledging, but as a community. And hence, the Korban Pesach was done in groups. And even till this day, Pesach is that time that all the families get together. You can almost gamble that on any given Seder table, you will have a wide variety of individuals. From those who don't want to be there, do want to be there, want to stay till 2 a.m., want to hurry up the meal. Anyone you tell that to, everyone laughs because that's everyone's Seder table. It's like everyone gets together. That's Pesach. The Korban Pesach is this communal thing, part of the community, part of the klal. The klal Yisrael, the forging of a nation. That's Pesach. This is the forging of a nation. So when we said before, all who are hungry, let them come and eat. we're inviting those people, the way my Rav said it, he says, you be careful who your guests are, who you invite, who you don't invite, He says, what's the Haggadah saying? It's saying, even that guy, that poor guy, the smelly guy with the hair growing out of his shirt, this one, the one that no one wants. He says, if he's Jewish, you can come to my table, because that is how I'm going to connect to the nation. I'm not an individual. A Brit Milah could be my individual connection, but Pesach is I'm part of the nation. I'm connecting back to the nation. That's going to be part of our experience of Pesach. If we get there, B'chol dor vador, in every generation, Chayav Adam lirot et asmo kilu hu yatsa, as though he left. So everyone asks, did I leave? How can I look at it as though I left? It's a hard one. That's what the Torah, kilu hu yatsa, that he left. One way that I understand it is that my nation left. My nation did leave. And the more I can become part of the nation, so then I also left. If I'm an individual, so then it didn't happen to me. But if I'm part of the nation, the corpus of Klal Yisrael, of the nation of Israel, then I did leave. Last year I said at my Seder, when it came to this line, I said, Anu, that we would still be slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. I said, one of my grandmothers went through Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz. I said, and if Hashem didn't take it out of there, then we'd still be slaves. We'd still be there, We'd still be there. That Hashem intervenes. Again, there are other questions to be asked. Why He put us there, that's going to be part of it as well. Okay, we'll see that soon coming up, why He put us there. But that Hashem is interested, that He intervenes, that He cares, that we see. Again, just to tie it back in, because this is not the Pesach, this is now Seder. It's also educational. You have to see that there is a theme. There's a theme running through this. It has to be communicated to your audience, that there's a story going on, that there's a God, and that there's a people, and that there's a plan. Yeah. And you also see that there's an emphasis on, not by way of an angel, and not by Moshe. Even, Moshe's not even mentioned here. Right? That's one of the big questions. Moshe's not even mentioned at all in the Haggadah.
Then doesn't it also mention that it's a mitzvah to invite a non-Jew to the Seder table as well?
No, not at all. In fact, they don't have a place. They don't have a place at the Seder table.
So is it on Sukkot that you're supposed to invite to the Sukkot?
I've never heard of specifically inviting non-Jews to.
No, I heard from some rabbi that there's one particular festival that it's actually good to invite someone who's not Jewish to the.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Hanukkah, maybe.
No, not at all. I've never heard of such a thing. In fact, it could even technically be problematic in certain circumstances to have a non-Jew, because then, when you cook and you're cooking for them, there's certain, on Yom Tov you can cook for Jewish needs, but you can't cook for non-Jewish needs, so it can get into a bit of a messy thing. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. And specifically by Pesach, you had to, before you could partake, now you will make sense, before you could partake of the Korban Pesach, of the communal offering, every male had to be circumcised. Makes sense now, right? Before you've made your individual connection, so what are you coming to the community for? And it says the blood of the paint, the blood they put on the doorpost was the mixture of the blood of the Korban Pesach and the blood of the Milah. It was this connection. I'm connected individually. I'm connected as a klal, as a community, and that was their pledge that they literally painted over their doorpost. This is what we stand for. This is who we are. And it had to be Hashem who intervened. It had to be Hashem who intervened and nothing else. It's Hashem who's interested in us from that highest of places. Nothing, looking back at our other shiurim, nothing, not part of the system anymore. There's no mazal, there's no malach, no angel, no constellation that's getting us out of there. It's from the highest point of creation. Hashem says, I'm interested in you and I want you. That's why it's always, V'yosinu Hashem Elokeinu misham. Hashem took us out. V'ilo lo hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if the Holy One, blessed, but He didn't take us out, we'd still be there. Okay? That's the emphasis on Hashem. It had to be Hashem Dafka, Hashem specifically. Okay, we carry on. Va'afilu kulanu chachamim, even if we are all wise, we were all wise. Kulanu nevonim, all understanding, right? Kulanu zakenim, elders. Kulanu yodim et Torah, even if we knew the whole Torah. Still, mitzvah aleinu nesaper b'yitziat Mitzrayim. It would still be a mitzvah to tell the story of the leaving of Egypt, and all those who increase in it, in the story, it is praiseworthy. Now let me ask you a question. Ve'afilu kulanu chachamim. Even if we were all wise, you'd still have to tell the story. Now you said at the beginning, it's a mitzvah to tell the story, correct? Says the Haggadah, even if you're wise, you still have to do this mitzvah. Have you ever heard of such a concept? Even if you're wise, you still have to learn Torah. You ever heard of such a thing? No. Have you ever? Even if you're very knowledgeable, you still have to put on tefillin. No. You have to put on tefillin. You have to say Shema. You have to learn Torah. What do you mean? Even if you are wise, you still have to do the mitzvah of telling the story. What's the Havamina? What's the Haggadah trying to teach you there? What's it telling you? Even if you are wise.
But even if you know the story and you know the reasons and of it, and you're already familiar with everything, what does it mean?
Yeah.
You still need to tell the story to remind yourself.
To remind yourself. I think also the notion of a chacham, of wisdom, is knowledge, right? That's very knowledgeable. It's saying this night is not about knowledge. It's not about accumulating information and knowledge. It's not about vortlach and divrei Torah, right? Not about all the nice things that everyone randomly heard and you put it all together and you have a beautiful divrei Torah evening. That should be what your Shabbos table looks like, yeah? But tonight, it's not about chokhmah. It's not about knowing the information. It's about communicating a story. It's a story. Tell a story. It's got nothing to do with wisdom and knowledge. It's got to do with an experience. Tell the story. Of course, you're not. Don't. What the Haggadah thought is what it's trying to take you away from. The faulty understanding is don't think that this is just communicating information. Even if we were all wise and we knew all the facts and all the information, that wouldn't help you for tonight. That won't get you anywhere. It's about telling a story with a theme and get the people involved and understanding what's going on. Okay, so I think it's a very powerful line here. Okay, so now what happens? Okay. So now we get to talks about telling the story even at the I would have thought only at nights, only during the days. Then I learned even during the nights. I think what's going on there is that right. It says, I'll just read the English. It says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, I'm like a man of 70. I could not succeed in having the exodus from Egypt mentioned every night until Ben Zoma expounded it in order that you may remember the day you left Egypt, all the days of your life. The phrase, the days of your life, would have indicated only the days. The addition of the word all includes the nights as well. But the sages declared the days of your life would mean only the present world. The addition of all includes the era of Mashiach. So again, just to show you how a Seder can go in divergent ways. You can now talk about Elazar ben Azariah, and you can talk about that he was a Gilgul of Shaul, and that he had 18 rows of hairs, and what the 18 represents. Can you see how we can get distracted from the story? What's he saying? He's saying that the message of Pesach, you may have thought only applies. He says, I thought it only applied during the day, recounting the story. What did I learn? It even applies during the nights. And I thought maybe only this world, even the next world. What's he saying? This hashgacha, this providence that Hashem provides for us, this intervention and care for the nation, I thought only applies in the day when there's clarity. Maybe when we're only in the land of Israel and we had a Beit HaMikdash. It even applies in the night, even in exile. Hashem's still there. We saw that in Purim, correct? We saw that in Purim. And not only in this world, but the next world. Again, it's the hashgacha coming through. Hashem's interested in all the time, not just during the times of clarity.
Did they always have two Seder's from the beginning, or is it only recently that we started having two Seder's?
Two Seders is got to do with like a 2-day Yom Tov. Got to do with a 2-day Yom Tov. And that's a separate thing. That's based on the fact that is how the rabbis established the observance of Yom Tov outside the land of Israel. And because that's how they established it, in the words of the Gemara, minhag avotenu beyadenu, that this is the custom that we have had, and we maintain that.
So in Israel they only have one Seder?
Correct. So the next paragraph says Baruch HaMakom, Baruch Hu. Okay, blessed the sea. And we speak about Keneged Arba Banim Dibra Torah. Parallel to 4 sons, the Torah is speaking. Echad Chacham, one wise. Echad Rashav, Echad Tam, Echad She'enu Yodea Lishol. So you see here how Hashem is now relating to all types of people. Yeah? Hashem's Torah, Dibra Torah. Dibra Torah. The Torah speaks to all the types of people. Wicked or wise. Wherever you are in the spectrum, Hashem's interested in you. Yeah? He's not dismissing anyone. Even the Rasha is interesting to note. It says, Ilu hayasham lo haya nigal. If the Rasha was in Egypt, he wouldn't have been saved. He would have been left there. But now that Hashem chose us as the nation, and He gave us the Torah, there's always a way to connect back to Hashem. We've now forged that connection for good. And even the Rasha, who we are addressing specifically, is part of the nation. And he always has a mechanism to return. That's the bashing out his teeth. Maybe a harsh way, but there's always a mechanism to return. Hashem's interested in the whole nation. Yeah. So I'm going to, I've also got some nice divrei Torah along the side, but I'm trying not to distract myself either here, so I'm going to leave that one out, even though I think it's really good, but okay. I'm trying to think if it's connected. It's important. It's important that you go through the Haggadah and you think, is this contributing to my theme? Or is it detracting? And it's hard. You want to tell all the
Haggadah involved, didn't it? It wasn't written.
That I don't know. I'll tell you this. It says here like this. It says he doesn't ask anything. This guy doesn't ask. He doesn't know how to ask. What's interesting is even though in the story, in the books, in our children's Haggadahs, you have the pictures. So you have this little child, doesn't know how to ask. It's always interesting who the Rashi is and how they dress them up and all these things. But the Vilna Gaon, he links the Chacham with the Tam, and he links the Rasha with the She'enu Yodea Lishol. Okay? There's something negative about this one that's not asking. Okay? It's not just a child now. This is a personality. So what's he saying? He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's not asking. So what's he saying? He's not saying anything. So what's his statement? He's saying is one of not caring. Okay. The Rasha is what is the She'enu Yodea Lishol. This is not relevant to me. It's not relevant. This is something that took place 3,300 years ago. Why should I eat the matzah to remember something that happened so long ago? So look what we say to him. So at patach lo, you have to open up for him. This is the Eino Yodea Lishol, the one who doesn't know how to ask. You have to open up for him, and you have to tell him the following: it says in the Torah that you shall tell your children on that day, saying, "Ba'avur zeh asa Hashem li b'tzeisi miMitzrayim." It's for this that Hashem took me out of Egypt. What's the obvious question? You tell the guy, it's for this that Hashem took me out of Mitzrayim. What's this? He says, is that what you asked? What's this? Wouldn't it be important to know what the this is? Yeah? Ba'avur zeh, it's for this that Asa Hashem li b'tzeisi Mitzrayim, that Hashem took me out of Egypt. What's the this? Okay, turn the page. Everyone thinks it's a new paragraph. It's really a continuation. It could be a continuation. Okay, have a look. You may have thought from Rosh Chodesh, Yachol Rosh Chodesh, Talmud Lomar b'Yom on that day. If on that day, Yachol mi ba'od yom, you may have thought from mi ba'od yom, from that day, on that day. Talmud Lomar ba'avur zeh. Oh, ba'avur zeh. We just saw that phrase, didn't we? Ba'avur zeh. It's for this. Look what the Haggadah says. Ba'avur zeh lo amarti ele b'sha'a sheyesh matzah umaro munachim lefanecha. And Rashi also says this in the Torah when it talks about the word zeh. It's for this. What's the this? When the matzah and the maror are placed in front of you. It's for these mitzvot. You think we're eating matzah to recall some event that took place 3,000 years ago. Wrong. Hashem took us out of Egypt 3,000 years ago so He could give you the mitzvot to keep today. That's what we're responding to His statement of this is irrelevant. Hashem took you out for a connection. This is not a ritual. This is not a ceremony. 2 words I despise. Okay? We don't do ceremonies. We don't do it. We don't do rituals. That's not what we do. Okay? That's not what our chagim are about. The mitzvah is attaching you to Hashem today. You think we're eating the matzah as some sort of ceremony, ritual, to remind us about yesteryear. Boring. And it is boring. Okay? Ceremonies are boring. But if Hashem took me out of Egypt so He can relate to me, He can choose me as a people, and He gave me the mitzvot to give me that channel to connect, so then the matzah and the maror are very essential. These are my tools to connect. It's very relevant. That's what we tell the Eini Yodei Lishol. That is as relevant as ever. So now we go on. Mitchila. Okay. Originally we were idol worshippers, and now Hashem brought us close to His service, as it says, and Yeshua says to the nation, etc. We were from the other side of the Jordan. It is a bit like a history lesson. Terach avi Avraham va'avi Nachor v'avdu Elokim machrim va'ekach. Now the use of verbs is very interesting here. Just like use va'ekach et avichem, and I took out your fathers, Avraham, Everhana, ve'olach, oto b'chol eretz Canaan. And I took him on this Israel journey, this Israel experience program. Ve'arbe et zaro, and I increased his seed. Ve'eten lo et Yitzchak. You see all the things that God is doing. Yeah? I took and I guided and I brought and I gave and ve'eten li Yitzchak et Yaakov ve'et Yesav. Ve'eten Esav et har seir lereshet oto ve'Yaakov banav yardu Mitzrayim. So Hashem has a plan. Hashem has a plan. And often we see things and it looks like political unrest. It looks like an Arab Spring and it looks like an Arab... there's a lot of different things that go on that we could attribute it to. And here Hashem is saying, it wasn't by chance that you found yourself in Egypt. I took you there. I took you there. V'Yaakov v'anav yardu Mitzrayim. I set it up. Okay? Esav has his, he set Esav up, but the Jewish people had a different story. It will come out of the next part as well. Baruch shomeh havtachato. Hashem who guards His promise. If I ask you, what's a promise? Why does somebody make a promise? Why does someone make a promise? I promise I'll do that. Pick me up tomorrow. Yes, I promise. I promise. Why does a person say, I promise? Commitment. Now, does God have commitment problems? If God says, I'm going to do something, does God need to bolster it?
No, but we do.
But God is saying, Baruch Haftachato, His promise to Israel, His pledge to Israel. It's His promise. To connect us. His promise, it means, it's not just that I'm going to do this thing. Right? You can pick someone up and then you can promise. So for us humans, it means we're trying to bolster it. I really, really will do it. But when God says, I promise, what's He saying? Don't just think I'm just taking you out of Egypt. No. I have an interest to take you out of Egypt. This is my business. Yeah, this is my business. I'm into this business of bringing God into this world. I'm going to publicize myself in this world. This is my business, and you're going to be my people. You're going to do it. You're going to be the conduit for that. That's my promise. That's a promise. That's a godly promise. God saying, this is my business. Klal Yisrael, the nation of Israel, that's my business. I'm going to look after you. That's a cool promise now, right? It's not just I'm going to take you out. It's a whole different perspective. I promise. This is on me. Yeah? This is my interest. Shehakadosh Baruch Hu chishav et haketz. Chishav. He considered. He calculated the end. Everything was calculated. Everything was it's frightening. Hashem, He took us there and He took us out. Okay, there's a purpose along the way. There's something that we have to achieve. We said at the end, v'achareichen, the last line there, yatz'u birchush gadol, we left with great wealth, not just monetary wealth, but whatever we were meant to achieve, whether it was taking away the jealousy, whether it was correcting the emunah, the faith, this connection that we had to have to Hashem, it had to be, that's the wealth that we left Egypt with. It wasn't for nothing. Okay, we have to connect to Hashem. That's the birchush gadol, the great wealth. Yeah, we won't leave empty-handed. That's a promise. I promise that you'll get what you need to get out of this exile. And it's important to understand that Egypt represents the encapsulation of all the exiles. It's our first one, and it encapsulates the rest. So what happens there is a prelude, is a template for everything else to come. Okay, we'll see that once we get into what actually happened there, we'll see that you know, the nature of exile and redemption is based on our experience in Egypt. So Vihi she'amda. This is the promise. Sorry, this is what has stood for us. What stood for us? What stood for us? And this is what has stood for us and our fathers, for our fathers and us. So it's referring here to the Brit Bein HaBetarim. The Brit Bein HaBetarim is this epic promise to Abraham. That I will, I'm going to be your God, and your descendants will be my people, and I will look after you, and you're going to be an eternal nation. That's, and it came with certain things. It came with, and what's part of this thing that stood by us? Not only one is stood up to destroy you, annihilate you, which means to just obliterate you. Every generation, someone will stand up to annihilate you. And Hashem will save us from their hands.
So the Ve'ishamda actually, doesn't it relate to the Haftacha itself?
This Haftacha, that what he'll look that he's our God.
והבטחתו היא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו.
So the Haftacha, the promise is that what? That he'll be our God.
No, the Haftacha.
What is the Haftacha?
The Haftacha means
that is interesting.
Which means Hashem guaranteed and promised.
What's the promise? The promise is this promise. This promise is the Brit Bein HaBetarim, isn't it? That Hashem said, "I'm going to be your God. You'll be my people, and I'll look after you." This is like the story of the Jewish people. It's the story of the Jewish people.
So what's a Brit Bein Ha?
Brit, which is covenant. Bein HaBetarim, between the parts. Literally means there's a whole ceremony that he did there, and that's where Hashem told Abraham that his descendants will be slaves. And they'll be taken out.
Excuse me, I'm going to do something. Sure.
Fine. Yeah.
By the way, the Haggadah here, you still see Abraham, not Abraham.
It's because it's referring to when before he was chosen, right? Before he was, when he was just. But then it changes. What do you have? What do you have? You said Avraham. Terach Avi Avraham.
Okay, so in the first part, where it says Baruch, it says Vayomer L'Avram. It says Mitchila. Above it, 2 paragraphs, it uses the word Avraham.
Oh, you're saying over here. Avraham Avinu.
Where-
Oh, because it's quoting a pasuk over here. Vayomer Avram Yado Teida Kiger. Yeah, this is the Brit Bein HaPtarim. And exactly right at the beginning that Hashem. I'll just show you here. La'asot kama shenema Avram Avinu beBrit Bein HaPtarim Shnei Emar. This is in the blessed is he who keeps his pledge to Israel. In the middle of it says Vayomer Avram, and Hashem said to Avram, Yado Teidai, shall surely know. In other words, this is going to happen. Ki ger yihye zar acha be'eretz lo lahem. They will be strangers in a land not their own. Ve'avadum ve'inu otam. And they're going to be enslaved and persecuted. Arba ma'ot shana. 400 years. And that nation will also be judged, and afterwards you'll live with great wealth. And that's the promise. Hashem, we go into a place. There's something we need to gain from that place, and then once it's used up, the place turns on us. For good or for bad. Just look at Jewish history. This is how it started in Egypt. Okay, it starts in Egypt. It says we went there. There's the next page. It says you went there b'mitei ma'at. You were just few in number, and you became a great nation, right? V'rav. And then it says, then we, v'timaleh ha'aretz otam, and then we multiplied, and the land filled up with them. Jews are everywhere. They control the media, right? That's what happened in Egypt. Rashi says on this pasuk that they filled up the land. It says that they went to their tiatrot and circus. They went to there. They were involved in the Egyptian culture. You can hear the same story repeating itself. And then the Egyptians turned, and you even see the nature of the anti-Jewishness was perplexing. What does Pharaoh say? They're too great. They're too strong. So you would think, get rid of them. Correct? What does he say? And we're worried lest the enemy come to attack us, and they'll join our enemies and leave. So what? You're worried that we'll leave? Hold on. You're worried that we'll stay? You're worried that we'll leave? Has it changed much, the nature of anti-Semitism? We want the Jews, we don't want the Jews. They're too big, That's the clash. That's right, exactly. That's the type. But from our perspective, we have a mission to do. I've got to stop now here, but part of that has to be expressing us what our mission is. Now that we see that Hashem's interested in us, that Hashem wants us. I think just to touch on a theme. Okay, Pesach, Matzah, and Maro. Maybe I shouldn't touch on the theme now. I should stop. I think we've done well tonight. I think we should stop here. We'll stop here. But this as a summary, that we've seen that there are various themes that one could draw off. We talk about Hashgacha, Hashem's providence, and then you've got to squeeze the Haggadah and just see that story flow through, and then hopefully your guests will leave with a message, which is what a story is. And then they have something. They don't just have 25 divrei Torah, but they have something. And that hopefully we can capture, and it will be useful. The Seder will then be a really productive opportunity.